Right then, we know there are a lot of problems at Manchester United, a lot of problems at Manchester United, but I want to look at the root of a handful of what I perceive to be some of the bigger problems. Maybe try and explain some of them, maybe explain why they can be fixed, why they can't be fixed, all that sort of stuff. But either way, I wanted to drill into the things that do need fixing at Manchester United. And one of the first things that you hear is, what is Ten Hag's style of play? Now, we know that Ten Hag prefers to build up using a 3-1-3-3 during possession. This was what made his Ajax side so good. He used this structure while he was at Ajax to create control, to break down oppositions, to have patient possession, to have a pretty good rest defence for when they did lose the ball. It was the basis of every single thing that he did. After joining United, he went with the 3-2 build-up structure, 3-2-5 pretty much. And that was compensating for some of the defensive frailties and limitations by adding an extra player into midfield to help with the progression. He focused on maximising our vertical play and going through players like Rashford and Bruno, looking for quicker transitions, and the results were largely successful. So when people were saying, I don't see what United's style of play is, we saw it. We literally saw it. We can identify it. You can put a hand on it. You can say, this is what Manchester United are trying to do. And it was an adaptation of what we saw him be successful with Ajax. We did loads of content on it last season, and there are loads of really good content creators, people like Tifo and some brilliant thread creators on Twitter who made countless examples of here is what Ten Hag is doing. Let alone whether he wanted to do it or whatever, here's what he was doing. Last season, you could put your finger on it and you could see it. This season, we thought he was trying to bring in his favoured structure. And we thought he was doing that by bringing in players like Mount, someone that was going to be a box-to-box connector, someone that worked in between the lines. However, injuries to the likes of Shaw and probably massively to Lisandro Martinez and the absence of a skilled ball-playing right-side centre-half hindered those plans and has led to us being quite vertical and hitting the ball up the pitch too often and too long, in my opinion. Now, right now, there seems to be a massive lack of synergy between the personnel that Ten Hag has brought in, but the football that we are trying to play importantly as well. And whether that's the build-up play or lack of build-up play, whether that's the more vertical attempt or lack of vertical attempt, we find ourselves in a really bizarre spot. The lack of players with ball progression ability mean that we rely on forced long balls and a reliance for Christian Eriksen to be able to move the ball with any level of patience or progression through the centre of the pitch, then also reduced our counter-attacking threat and also our compactness out of possession. There's so many issues with people are like, oh, these guys have had injuries and these guys have had injuries. And at the end of the day, those teams, whether that was by design or by accident or luck, those teams were better equipped to deal with the issues that they had as a team than Manchester United were. So I did a couple of posts on Twitter this morning where someone was like, we don't see a style of play with Manchester United this season. And I'm absolutely with you, mate. We don't. But there are reasons for it. Newcastle have had some injuries, and right now Newcastle have got a serious injury crisis, but it's really affected their bench. Yes, Miley has been found his way into the first team. For Miley, you can see Mainu. But outside of that, they've not missed an entire defence. They've not really missed Bruno Grimash too much. They've had a structure by and large. Now they're missing 4 or 5, I would say, out of the first 11. But prior to that, it wasn't that deep. Certainly not to the level of Manchester United, where the entire back 4 and actually the 2 number 6s just weren't there. And that doesn't even start getting into the fact that we've had no right wing issue. The number 9 has been injured and then he's been required to just come in and hit the ground running. The left winger is just having the worst season of his career. And then you've got a goalkeeper that's trying to settle in. putting up the best numbers in the Premier League, it must be said, but a goalkeeper that is trying to settle in. So why can't we see a Manchester United style of play? Well, all of the players that Ten Hag bought to come and play his style of play, whether that's Casemiro, Mount, Lisandro Martinez, they've not played. These are extremely key to what he's trying to do. And then you're forcing this team to go, let's look at the Newcastle game, right? Newcastle came and pressed Manchester United. They tried to play out. You can't play out with Harry Maguire because he can't play out. And there's been some excellent threads done on Twitter this week, which have articulated. Actually, we did a podcast with Ash, which is due out nowish, where we looked into some of the reasons from someone who actually knows what he's talking about in Ash, in why Harry Maguire isn't a good ball-playing defender. And I've judged him on what he does with the ball, and I see him playing it to people's back foot, playing it behind them, taking too many touches, that sort of thing. Because that's the stuff I see, whereas a professional like Ash sees other stuff, extra stuff. And if you haven't seen it, he replaced Rio and Vibe with 5 today, and he actually gets some top detail on why Harry Maguire is not a good ball player and why he's not making himself available. And again, there was someone that did a thread on Twitter as well. If I can remember who it was, I will throw the link in there. It's just showing him hiding from the ball and pointing in the opposite direction, like send it over there. So you ask why we can't play through. And even if you do manage to get it through the likes of Harry Maguire, there is no midfield there to collect it. You aren't seeing Eriksen, Casemiro, who were so good for us in combination last season. They're just not there. So United have then been forced to go long, but Højlund isn't really a target man. He's a big physical forward, but this isn't Mark Hughes. You know what I mean? This is a kid that's got quite an all-round kind of striking game. He's not the guy to hold the ball up and bring others into play in the manner where you just want to constantly send balls into him. So of course United have struggled in that sense. Now, does that mean we just accept it? No. I would like to see United continually work on how we get around this. And you've seen Luke Shaw being brought in at centre-half. I think there's a reason for that. I'd love to know what's going on with Rafael Varane. But the stats back up what we're seeing. United are 13th in the league for short pass completion. We're behind Burnley and we're behind Fulham. Not acceptable. We're 10th for touches in the middle third of the pitch. Bang average. We have a worse possession out of the top 9 teams with 53.1%, which will probably be even lower post the Chelsea game. So do United have a go-to build-up pattern? With the way we see with De Zerbi and that? No, we don't. In short, no. Erik Ten Hag has been deploying a range of different setups from usually a minimum of 4 players up to 6 players being involved with it. And it's changing constantly. And it's changing based on the personnel, the opponent's pressing pattern, the game state. We've not been allowed to get any level of consistency in our playing out structure because of all those factors. And I think it's clear that many of the progression variations, at best, involve Luke Shaw and Martinez, highlighting why recently those patterns, without them, have been having to go more direct. The composure and the intelligence and ball playing ability of the likes of Luke Shaw and Lisandro Martinez, being able to find better options further up the pitch under pressure with good technical progression, helping them receive the ball and steer their way out of trouble. It's just been missed, and it needs to be solved. I think it really shows the importance, but also reliance on personnel. And this is where recruitment comes in. And people will say, well, he's wasted this money and he's wasted that money, he's wasted this. And it's not without merit saying that. But when your star centre-half isn't available and the second choice one is also not available for whatever reason, what do you expect him to do? You can't buy 25 centre-halves unless you're Pep Guardiola. You know, there's an inconsistency in recognising situations, in gaining that numerical superiority, finding the free man, getting 2v1 and 3v2 against the opposition's attack. Newcastle recognised that, forced United to go long and just took the ball off us. And that's happened time and time and time again. We played long, and it basically just plays into the trap set by the opposition. At the moment, Manchester United do not have a reliable, central, ball-progressing player. And that's why Kobbie Mainoo has got 2 starts to his name very recently. We've got less than optimal structures in the wide areas. There seems to be a bit of an over-fixation. We're trying to get the ball wide. And for me, when you go wide, that's a pressing trigger. You know, you'll see people leave off a centre-half, wait for him to start shaping up to play it to his nearest fullback, and then arc round, cutting the ball back to him off and press the fullback. You know, United's inability to consistently get over the halfway line in possession of the ball has been, for me, the major downfall of our season this year. Second major thing, man management. So, Ten Hag's adeptness when it comes to man management is under a lot of scrutiny at the moment, and there may be some merit to it. There is talk of strained relationships in his tenure. Currently, we have no idea what's going on with Raphael Varane, and it would appear the rumours of a fallout with Erik ten Hag are accurate. There are rumours of a fallout with Casemiro, and prior to this injury, they looked like they had merit. We well documented what's gone on with Jadon Sancho, but even Cristiano Ronaldo. You know, that happened in this era under Erik ten Hag, and you can't deny it or discount it. And the series of rifts between the coach and the prominent figures do raise concerns about his ability to foster a harmonious and cohesive team environment. But I think what has to be remembered in all of this is this was a team that lacked discipline. This was a team that wasn't putting out on the training ground, and that's now starting to really come to fruit on the football pitch. Ralph Rangnick told us the warning signs were there under Ole. They might have been there under Jose as well. This is not new. Some of these players are not working anywhere near hard enough. And this is where I think, as a fan base, we have to be strong and not reactionary and not favour these star players. This is a period where tough decisions have to be made. Sir Alex Ferguson broke the drinking culture of Manchester United. There were fan favourites like Paul Maguire and Norman Whiteside moved on because they didn't do the right thing in Fergie's eyes when it came to the way they looked after themselves off the pitch. You know, players were moved on because they couldn't operate at the level that Sir Alex Ferguson required. And he went through years of teething problems. He joined in 86 and his head was on the block in 89 and 90. That's a fact, before he won the FA Cup and bought himself a little bit of breathing room. But one of the things that he did was change the culture within the squad, change the drinking culture, break the drinking culture, and find a more professional group of players that he could actually rely on. And I feel like Erik ten Hag is in the midst of that. I think there's certain players who just aren't performing at the level required of Manchester United players, and they might be fan favourites. People like Cristiano Ronaldo, if he wasn't doing what Ten Hag wanted him to do, you have to back the manager in this to find out whether or not we can build a team on the other side of this. Varane's discontent over tactics and selection. Casemiro's reported gripe over his playing time. Sancho's dissatisfaction with his treatment, and Ten Hag's alleged favouritism over Antony, as well as the tensions with Cristiano Ronaldo, all cast aspersions on Ten Hag's leadership. Now, I am fortunate enough that I can get a little bit of a word from within the squad, and one of the things I have heard, rumoured, I would say, is that Ten Hag isn't the warmest personality. And it could be said, when things are going well, it's fine. When they're not, there are question marks over whether or not he is the man that can bring the warmth. And perhaps that's why Steve McLaren is involved. Someone that can act as that bridge. And to be honest, I'm not bothered about that. I don't think Sir Alex Ferguson was always very warm. I think he was a bit of a headmaster kind of type, especially early doors at Manchester United. I think he evolved into everyone's favourite granddad with the success that he got. I think the Fergie that came here was a fucking horrible, ruthless winner. And he did whatever the fuck it required. When you go and read some of the books and listen to some of the interviews of players around the time, you know, that hairdryer associated with Fergie, it wasn't a meme. That wasn't a myth. That was probably a near daily occurrence in them changing rooms. And I also don't think Ten Hag is without any kind of warmth. I think his attempt to get Jadon Sancho on side last year when he sent him to Holland to get himself sorted out, that shows a man of empathy and a man that's trying to do the right thing. And I know people are going to see this video in defense of, then it really isn't. I'm trying to 360 analyze everything that's going on at United here, and I think there are some things Ten Hag is probably culpable for, but then some things that are out of his control. You know, I think the issues at the moment beg a question about whether his management style accommodates the demands and expectations of the modern star player. And does that potentially impact team morale and performance on the pitch? You know, there was quite public acceptance of wanting Mason Greenwood back in the team. And even though I don't really want to get into everything that's going on with Mason Greenwood, but I imagine there was quite strong opinions within the dressing room about Mason Greenwood, both for and against having him back in the squad. But when you see the sort of zero tolerance for lateness, but maybe a bit more of an acceptance of some other things, off the field things, maybe that inconsistency in severity causes issues in the changing room. Again, that is speculation. I don't know that for sure. No one's actually spoke to me about that in any sense, actually. I just think it's a potential thing that could be, whether it's subconscious or conscious, could be a potential issue for everybody. And then the final issue, which I think is very valid, and for me it's the most worrying one, and that's work rate. United are often outworked and often outran by opposition. And when you compound that issue with a structural issue within the team at the moment in terms of we're not doing what we need to do to be able to play out effectively or create chances effectively, well, you get the results that we're seeing at the moment. And if you compare the work rate of our wide players to other teams, it can be night and day. And I think that's an issue with players. The want to. And the want to for me isn't tactical. The want to for me isn't fitness. The want to for me is purely attitude and mood. And I think the attitude and mood at Manchester United is wrong at the moment. And I mentioned this in the fan channel of a weekend, and as always, people extrapolate to the nth degree and completely miss the point of what you were saying. For those who missed it, I said they need to go on the piss following the Newcastle game. And that's not because I'm rewarding the performance of the Newcastle game. I said they need to go on the piss because it feels to me this team needs to have it out with each other. One more passing drill doesn't help, doesn't flip our performances round and see United go and smash Chelsea at Old Trafford Wednesday night. One more finishing session doesn't mean we now start creating an extra 5 chances a game and burying 3 of them. It just doesn't. You know, a night on the piss doesn't completely destroy our fitness levels, and it certainly doesn't make them better. But there's obviously a pressure. There's obviously a weight. There's obviously an issue with playing for Manchester United at present. It's obvious. How do you alleviate this pressure? How do you turn this around? And no, just getting drunk isn't the answer to that. But what I'm sort of scratching at really is, for me, this team looks jaded with each other. It looks like it doesn't want to fight for each other. And mood and attitude are two things that I think can be impacted by a bit of team bonding. And that's what I'm getting at. The work rate thing is madness. You know, there's cultural issues about some of the players being paid the highest in the league without the accolades to back it up. That leads to fans to question the fire in them to deal with the adversity that we're seeing at the moment. There's too many players operating within their comfort zone. United as a football club are no longer seen as the pinnacle of football for a player. Players will not come to Manchester United because of the harm it may do to their career, whereas previously that wasn't the case. It's no coincidence that some of the best performances have come from younger players, either in the cup competitions or in the league at the moment with Kobbie Mainoo. When things aren't going well, work hard. That should always be the mantra. Never outworked. It's a phrase I like. Never outworked. And Manchester United are frequently outworked. And that can only be an attitude thing. And I think Ten Hag, I think it's his job to fix it, but I don't necessarily think it's his fault that it's there. But it is his responsibility to get it sorted. Because if he doesn't get it sorted, you will see this team falter, fail, and he will lose his job because of it. So like I said, this wasn't an in defence of in any shape or form. This was a what I believe is wrong at United. And of course, there's a lot of things is the answer. What's wrong at United? Fucking loads. But hopefully it's a relatively cool-headed look at the various things that are wrong with a couple of suggestions on how I think they can be put right. It won't happen overnight. And even if you do go on the piss together, have a good fucking tear up, get into each other, let everybody know they're having it, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing the other. I think it'll still take a bit to turn around. The team needs confidence. And confidence takes a minute to build. It doesn't happen in a game. You can move it forward or backwards, like snakes and ladders. You know, you can build and then hit a big skid and end up back at square one. So you have to keep working at it. I've got a beer mat here, or a coaster, which may be pretty apt for United at the moment. The beatings will continue until morale improves. Maybe that's what needs to happen at United. Let me know your thoughts anyway on how we fix this shit show. I'll see you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.